Welcome to the show. Today we're talking about Fallout 3. Ooh. Fallout 3 is a game. It has a story. Who cares what the story is? This is a Bethesda game. So what happens is I play the game all wrong, it turns out. Because I played through and I had never played Fallout 3 before and I had to play it for the show. So I said, I'm just going to power through this thing.
Yeah.
And it was completely unsatisfying and I thought the story was stupid. Let me just say, hold on. Let me say this at the top. If you don't want spoilers for the game, we're probably going to spoil the mechanics and the story and all that kind of stuff. Yep. So you may not want to listen to this episode until after you play the game. However, I will tell you, do I recommend it? Well, 12.4 million people bought copies of the game, so yeah, I'd recommend it. You should buy it and play it because you might love it, and a lot of people do love it. Would I recommend it because I think that this is a great game with incredible storyline, very deep and immersive role-playing experience that you will enjoy if you enjoyed Fallout 1 and 2? I would not.
Yeah.
Because that's not how I feel about it.
It's a very different game.
But a lot of people love it, so go try it. Back to the game. Kevin, before we get into it, what is your overall take on the game? First of all, did you enjoy the game?
Yeah, I like it.
Is this the first time you played through it? No, you've played through it before.
I've played through it a few times, actually.
Okay, so you've played through it a few times. You've got more experience with it than me.
Now, it's been years and years since I played it. My copy is my original copy. I bought the Game of the Year edition for this one.
Yeah,
my copy is actually in storage. It's a disc copy of the game.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any DLC or anything. I like it. I mean, like you said, it doesn't have a great story.
I'm actually glad.
Modern Bethesda does not care. I mean, there's kind of two Bethesdas, but modern Bethesda does not really care about that.
Yes, I'm glad that I can talk about this game with you because you have a lot more Bethesda experience than me. Yeah. I've played Daggerfall. I did not play Oblivion, Morrowind, Skyrim, any of that. And so Fallout 3, you know, I've listened to people talk about Bethesda games. I feel like I understand them a little bit, but not from personal experience. And it seems like Fallout 3 has all the issues of the Bethesda game. Let's just get into it on a high level. Yeah. Okay, talk about our general impressions of the game, and then we're going to get into nitpickier stuff. So we're going to start. Let's start with the overall view. I guess I sort of liked it because I kept playing it. If I really hated it, I would have stopped, and then I would have come on this podcast and told you why it was so terrible I couldn't stop playing. Yeah. But Bethesda, it's a weird combination of a very playable game, which does that make it a good game? Maybe, but also a terrible game at the same time. It's weirdly good and bad at once.
And it's kind of broadly Bethesda in general. There's sort of, I'm not going to give you a huge history lesson on that. There's kind of two Bethesdas a little bit.
Okay.
There's pre-Morrowind Bethesda and there's post-Morrowind Bethesda. They're like different sets of people that worked on the games, like the old games like Daggerfall and stuff like that.
Okay, so they had like a huge staff turnover around that time?
The old games, you had like Julian LaFay and Mark A. Jones working on those old games. And then Morrowind is where you get like Todd Howard and those guys come in and start taking over stuff. And that's when it starts to become like, I mean, they're already janky, weird games anyway, but that's when they really start to focus on like making really polished, I'm using air quotes here, polished games.
Something that's more for the masses, I would say.
Yeah, it's very, because
you're talking about Morrowind and Oblivion and stuff, and I think the general consensus is, and tell me if you agree, that as you get more games, they become more stripped down, easier, and they appeal more to the masses because they're easier to play.
Yeah.
But you're stripping out options.
Yeah, I think Morrowind was the last game with all those old guys in it. And they liked having huge, you had Daggerfall, which is a huge world. You have tons of skills that didn't all get implemented well, but it was like, had this sort of attempt to make a huge game. And then when you get into like the Todd Howard, I'm using Todd Howard. He's not the only person.
But he's the face.
Yeah,
he's the one who delivers all the Bethesda
When I say
talks.
Todd Howard, you know what I mean.
Yes. He's a shorthand for the whole new crew.
Yeah, this is the point where they're starting to streamline stuff, and they're really making things into like palatable products. They can be sold at mass too.
That's sort of what happened to
millions of
Final
people.
Fantasy. Like, as I was growing up, I was playing Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
And you had the same basic core crew working on the games up until about 9.
Yeah.
And then 9 to 10, that's when you sort of have a changing of the guard. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's the way it is in my head.
Yeah.
And you can tell with Part 10 that it's a different company and a different game.
Oh yeah.
So I guess, Bethesda's the same way. And Fallout 3 feels like a 100% Bethesda game.
Yeah.
Because it's got all that Bethesda nonsense. First of all, the main story doesn't matter. And I think I started to say this, but I played it all wrong because I was just trying to get through it for the podcast.
Yeah.
But it turns out the way that you are supposed to play Bethesda games is you don't worry about the main story. You just start walking and you start talking to people and you start exploring things and you just see what you can find.
Yeah. Look, this is the Bethesda gameplay loop. Oh, here's the main story. I'll go do a little bit of that, and then you just go wander around for 30 hours, and you're like, oh, let me continue the main quest a little bit.
Because at the beginning of Fallout 3, I knew nothing about it, so I had no idea what to do. So I was literally just wandering around talking to people, and I got myself in a situation. I was telling you about that thing with the Brotherhood that you told me I went into a DLC. I had no idea. I was just wandering around.
Yep.
And I found myself in the middle of a firefight between the Brotherhood and I almost said space mutants. Super mutants.
Yeah.
And I help them out, and I end up in their place, and then they, for reasons that make no sense, but just exist to move along the story, I have to be inserted into some simulation to do this thing for the Brotherhood, and I do it, and I get out, and then there's a betrayal, and I'm involved in the middle of a firefight, and I jump into some power armor and grab a bunch of weapons. Next thing you know, I'm just a couple hours in the game, and I've already got power armor and a Gauss rifle.
I didn't say anything about it because I knew you hadn't played it, but when you told me in a Twitter message or something really early on that he got power armor, I was like, what the fuck?
That fool done did a DLC. How'd you get into the DLC?
That explains it. Yeah, that's DLC.
Yeah. And I was just wandering around
DLC this time. Yeah.
The first 2 hours of the game, and this also, I told you, I didn't realize there were quest markers.
Yeah.
So I was just playing it like like the original Fallout games didn't have quest markers, so you just had to talk to people and walk around and figure stuff out. And that's the way I was playing Fallout 3 for a few hours. And I found myself in the midst of this maze of metro tunnels.
Yep.
Which was awful. Because I was just going from one metro tunnel to the other trying to find... What happened was I was trying to find Galaxy News Radio. And I guess I was just sort of zigging when I should have zagged. And I was going everywhere around it, but not to the actual one place I needed to go. And it turned into a thing.
It's easy to do.
So Fallout is a very playable game that a lot of people play, and a lot of people insist that it's an excellent game and a masterpiece. Or a lot of people say, look, I know it's got problems, but I don't know what to tell you. I just like to play it.
No, that's
it's like a cell phone game.
That's the correct answer.
It's like a cell phone game because you're walking through and it's subtle. But when you think about what's happening to you, you realize that Todd Howard is playing you like a violin.
Yeah.
You pick something up and you hear a cha-ching. Every time you kill a bad guy, cha-ching. You hear this cash register sound, and you see a progress bar pop up on your screen, and it moves over just a little bit.
And there's just something comical about it. I don't know, just the way they do stuff. I think I told you this in a message or something like that. This has a special status for me. It's the only game I sometimes play like a complete psycho.
Yeah,
there's no other
just
game
going
where
around
I do
doing
I would literally
stuff.
just make a character and just like be a complete psycho with it, like blow up Megaton, but not for the money, just to do it,
just to do it.
Because God Almighty, there's just something so funny about when you have a combat shotgun.
Yeah,
and like somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, thanks for helping us out." You're like, "No problem." They turn around, you just shoot them in the back of the head. First off,
that is the fun. That's the GTA joy of these Bethesda games. Is seeing how you can break it to pieces.
God, they turn around, you just shoot them in the back of the head. Their head explodes in a million pieces. First off, this is comic gold. Their head explodes in 1,000 pieces, and it says in the upper left hand corner, "Oh, their head is crippled."
Yeah,
like, yeah, no shit, buddy.
It's so bizarre.
It plays the "you lost karma" sound, then the cha-ching experience sound, and it kills me every time.
It's so weird. The combat is so weird.
Yeah.
This gameplay, okay, so if you've played the original Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, and by the way, we did episodes on those, so go back and check them out if you have any interest in hearing people discuss the games, or if you don't know anything about them and want to get a sort of a flavor of what they're all about. But Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 are classic computer role-playing games, and they are role-playing games because you can go through the entire first game without fighting, and a gigantic portion of the second game, though the second game does require you to at least fight the last boss, and
Yeah.
I think something else that I can't think of off the top of my head. But anyway, you are forced into some combat.
Yeah, it's definitely more requiring too.
But the game was also full of weird quests like Ghost has lost her locket.
Yeah.
And you bring her peace by bringing the locket back. But you can get even more points if you take her remains and then bury them in the graveyard. No combat involved in any of that.
Yeah.
There's another quest where you can go to New Reno.
Yeah.
You can do all kinds of stuff there. You can become a porn star if you want.
Yep.
Or the fluffer,
Yeah.
depending on your charisma
True.
and all that kind of stuff. You could be a boxer.
Yep.
You can become that now. That is combat, but it's a little bit of a different thing.
Yeah.
You can do things like I'm trying to think back of all the quests in Fallout 1. You can. I think someone in that game had a well that needed to be repaired, and you can repair that and get the water
Yeah, I think
working
so.
for the town.
I think
something
there are a
like
bunch
that.
of wells in that game for some reason.
There are local raiders who kidnapped a young girl, and you can go in there and blow them all away, or you can pay a ransom, or you can sneak in and spirit her away without anybody knowing if you've got the right skills. So it was a game that really depended on its skills to create lots of different ways to play the game. Fallout 3, on the other hand, is a looter shooter.
Yeah.
It is full of stuff. If you are a hoarder, you can live out your hoarding fantasy in this game because you get a dwelling or a house, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's full. You walk around and there, here's a spoon, here's scrap metal, here are cups, here is a plunger. Things that you do not need and don't sell. I guess you could sell them for a bottle cap if you wanted to. So you could just take all that stuff and you could fill your house up to the top. If you have a hoarding problem and you want to express yourself in this game, Fallout 3 is the game for you. Just go around and collect all the junk.
You can build the rocket launcher and just shoot all the junk you got.
Oh, yeah. Can't you make one that actually shoots little junk?
Yeah, just shoots junk. Yeah.
Something funny about the missile launcher. All right, hold on. We'll get into funny stuff later. I won't get into that. I've got a lot of funny, weird things that I want to talk about with the game. But anyway, if you don't know, Fallout 3 takes place after Fallout 2 chronologically. It is something like 200 years after the events that kick off the first game. Yeah. We are still in an apocalyptic wasteland. You play a person who was born and raised in a vault, and on their, 16th, 18th?
I think it's 18th.
18 years old, I think. Suddenly, your dad leaves, and now the people who run the vault are trying to find you and maybe kill you, and you've got to get out of there. So you escape, and you're looking for your dad. That's the premise of the whole game.
Yep.
For a good chunk of it is you just walking around, and you're always one step behind him. So you go to the first logical town, and you do some quests, and they're like, oh, we saw a guy, and he went here, and blah, blah, blah. And you're just following the breadcrumbs until you finally reach your dad. And most of what you'll be doing is walking around in the wasteland and getting shot from a quarter mile away by mercenaries or mutants. Or what's funny is, let's talk about some of these monsters a little bit for just a second.
All right.
The first game, you fought lots of mole rats. And they were little bitty things, and they were very slow, and they were like a beginner enemy, and you could kill them all day, and who cares? I remember playing Fallout 3, the very first mole rat I saw, that thing was moving so freaking fast. It scared me.
It's funny.
It was in my face. And you know, this is a 3D shooter, so I'm like trying to aim at it and hit it.
Yeah.
Missing. Shooting everywhere except the rat because this thing is in my face.
Open up VATS, aim for the head.
That is
10 times.
one good thing I like about VATS is because like the ghouls are so fast. And so I'll shoot them from far away, but then when they get close, I'll hit that V button, bring up the VATS. And when they're that close, you're not going to miss their head. And you just use all your action points. Head, and boom, they dead.
No, yeah, it definitely helps, especially if you're not like great at first person shooters like I am definitely not. I always snipe a lot in these games.
Yeah.
I use a hunting rifle for the entire game, and I also use a sniper rifle.
Yeah, I had all kinds of weapons. I had so many weapons.
I did too.
And I actually used a walkthrough, not a walkthrough. I used a guide for building a character because Fallout is a game like the original 2 game. There's so many skills.
Yeah.
You would not know what to put points in. And it's like, I want to get a half decent experience of this game. So I want to just read and see what is a good way to set up a character so that you can do things in the game. And I ended up putting points in repair, speech, and barter. Yeah. And it's like, I never would have put points into barter or repair. But it turns out the first 2 games, repair was something totally different. You would use it on things in the environment to fix things. Then I guess you probably use it that way in this game somewhere, but I didn't. But it's just used to repair your weapons, which are always in danger of breaking.
No, you need that.
Yeah. So I had a high repair skill. And my speech was maxed out almost immediately within just a few levels because I was just dumping points. But what I did not put any points into was guns. Now, in the first 2 Fallout games, you had to put points in your guns or you were useless.
Yeah.
I think I finished the game with like 20 small guns, and it didn't matter at all because you're just aiming and shooting.
Interesting.
Or I'm using VATS when I'm so close, there's no way I can miss anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I think I did put some points in guys, but I stopped at some point.
Yeah.
I think I had like 60 or something.
This is a very different game than Fallout 1 and Fallout 2. It's got a little bit of the same aesthetic. It's got sort of the 50s thing going on. Yeah. But you do wonder, after 200 years, shouldn't they have some of this shit cleaned up? I mean, the whole place is a mess. Everything is rubble. All these buildings are a complete disaster. And you're like, I don't know, 200 years. Think about...
I don't disagree entirely, although in some of the... And this is one of the things I think Bethesda did correctly, is when they took over the games. You know, the Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas take place on the West Coast. But Bethesda's games take place on the East Coast. And in the lore of the games, everything was like hit a lot harder with the bombs on the East Coast.
Yeah, you're actually in Washington.
Yeah.
D.C.
And a funny thing, you know, like literally yesterday, I was like, you know, it just occurred to me I've never been to the White House in this game. I was like,
I didn't go there either.
I was like, so I went to the White House and it's just a hole in the ground. I was like, oh, you know, I guess that makes sense, actually. You know, they would nuke it directly.
Right.
That would make sense.
That'd be one of your first targets.
Yeah. I got to where it said the White House. I was like, where is it? I was like, oh, yeah.
I'm just thinking about, okay, let's do some math. 1822. What was it like in 1822? And what all has happened between 1822 and today? And I feel like the wasteland would look a little different in 200 years.
No, I agree, actually.
It's not a huge point. I mean, who cares? It's just a setting for the game. You know, it didn't ruin my enjoyment of the game, but I did think about it. You know, it's like everything's just a little too messed up.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's a combination of that 50s vibe, which you would think they have 50s technology, but they also have artificial intelligence and sentient robots and things like that walking around. So it's kind of its own weird world of scientific future tech mixed with 50s technology. It's weird. It's its own thing. It probably doesn't make any sense. But it's Fallout.
Although Bethesda did introduce one thing that bugs the shit out of me.
What's that?
Because I think it doesn't fit with the aesthetic a lot in Fallout 3 and 4. And that is, they have androids in them.
The synths, right?
Yeah, well, in Fallout 4, they're the synths. In this game, there's a quest that has an android.
Oh, yeah. I did not complete that quest. Actually, it's funny because I accidentally did most of it. I found some kid who gave me some information, and then I found some holotape that talked about it, but I never finished the quest.
Yeah.
An
android. I think I did. I just told the guy.
An android that's so real that he can pass for human. Yeah.
Which bugs me because it's like, it doesn't. It doesn't gel with the Fallout stuff. Where all the computers are still like giant, like vacuum tube using.
Yeah, think about monsters. Fallout 1. The level of technology they had.
Yeah.
I mean, they had.
The way Tim Kaine put it, it's like it's clearly the future, but it looks like the 50s.
It's really sort of steampunk meets the 50s.
Yeah.
That's the tech aesthetic of Fallout. Anyway, if you enjoy the colors green, brown, tan, taupe, that kind of stuff, you'll love the graphics of Fallout. I would love to play the game again with a mod that changed the colors because, man, I just hated that green tinge to everything.
It's a little oppressive after a while.
You know, the first 2 games created an apocalyptic wasteland while also using lots of beautiful color.
Yeah.
And something that bothered me too is you go to Megaton. That's the first town you're probably going to go to after the game starts. And no matter how much I walk around Megaton, I still don't feel like I have a visual grasp of the land.
Yeah.
Everything runs together. Everything just sort of looks the same except for that bomb that's in the center of town. And by the way, why would you ever build a town? Do they explain why they build a town around the bomb? I know there's a cult there that worships it.
Did they? I feel like there was some explanation for it, but I don't remember.
There probably was that I missed or had blocked out. But I'm just thinking, why in the world would these people be here around an unexploded bomb?
It doesn't make any sense.
It's just silliness just to set the game up.
Yeah.
But no matter how much I walked around that town, it just didn't visually click with me. Like in the original Fallout, everything made perfect visual sense instantly.
Yeah.
And I do miss the sprite graphics. There was a certain charm that came with those sprite graphics and old sprite graphics, so that they're not too many colors and they're kind of dithered.
Yeah.
So there's sort of a roughness about the graphics anyway. And then we moved to 3D and everything's green. And everything sort of looks the same, and the Bethesda humans look. I feel like Todd Howard hates. All right, let's not get into the weirdness quite yet.
Yeah.
So the way the game works is you do these quests and whatever, but you don't have as many skills as you used to have.
Yeah.
So it's mostly just you go to a place and you shoot some things. And if you got lock picking, you can open some stuff.
Yeah.
And if you've got science, you can go into computer terminals and find some stuff. But other than that, you're just shooting stuff. So it's really, it's changed from a role-playing game to a shooter, an FPS with role-playing elements.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, it's just a shooter and they're trying to make it, basically as fun as possible without really worrying about too much else. So every part of it is just designed to be immediately sort of satisfying. Yeah,
I'm dissatisfied with it overall, but I know a lot of people like it. So you might like it. I don't know. But going from 1 and 2 into 3, I was like, man, this is just not the same.
The way the game gets praised is weird sometimes. Because like I said, in my opinion, the correct answer is it's a fun game, but don't think about it too hard. Just enjoy the jankiness of it.
Oh,
but some people really like... praise it for the like air quotes moral choices and stuff like that, and it's like there's none there really. Yeah,
there are no decisions, are there?
Not really.
You can say something nice, or you can say the same thing in a mean way.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
I mean, and any moral decisions are like you can blow up Megaton or not. You can like kill an entire population of people.
Yeah.
Or at the end of the game, spoiler alert, you can put the FEV virus in or not.
Right. I did that.
Did you?
I did that.
Damn.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
And it did the thing at the top. Karma. Bad karma,
I'm
dude.
sure, yeah. No, I didn't do that, but...
You play the game, and you're right. You don't have the same level of decision-making.
Yeah.
And there are precious NPCs in this game. So, like, in the first 2 games, you could probably kill every NPC in the game.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can.
There were almost none that were invincible, but this game is not like that.
Oh, no, yeah, this is something that I'm going to say that Bethesda does. Use that phrase a lot. This is something that Bethesda does that bugs the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because they have... And in Fallout 4, they get really happy with, like, essential NPCs.
Yeah. Yeah, this
Which,
game...
not that I want to, like, kill all the NPCs or anything like that, but it's
I like to be able to.
Yeah, it's about having the choice, and I like Fallout 3, but one of my big critiques of it is that like Bethesda kind of mislocates what's good about the original Fallouts, Fallout 1 and 2.
To me, Fallout 3...
It's not really about it being an open world, it's about having a story that's very dynamic.
Right.
And can adapt to anything you do.
Well, you feel like you're in that world.
Yeah.
And that you can affect it however you can figure out to affect it. Whereas Fallout 3 feels like you're in a game.
Yeah.
And you have to play the game the way the game is set up to be played.
And when you have, essential NPCs that can't be killed, and it doesn't matter how many times you blast them in the face with the combat shotgun.
This is a game!
They'll get back up and they'll still talk to you and give you the quest.
Remember Jumanji?
Yeah.
Did you watch that new version of the first Jumanji movie? When they get sucked into the game, an NPC rolls up, and he acts just like they think it's just a person at first, but then he keeps repeating himself when they ask different questions. That's what it feels like in this game. It's like it's very NPC.
No, pretty much. That's it.
We should talk about some of the jankiness and weirdness of these games because they are so very weird. Bethesda games in general are weird. First of all, it's got that Bethesda ugliness. It makes you think that Todd Howard just hates humanity because every person just looks ugly.
Well,
ugly.
That really is more of that era of Bethesda games. It's not as bad as Oblivion,
To be fair, it's
but it's pretty bad.
2008.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. The 3D graphics come a long way.
Yeah, it's still using the same Oblivion engine, but they reined in some of the character creation a little bit,
Yeah.
so that you can't make God Oblivion. Jesus
This
Christ,
is the most awful, horrific looking stuff you can imagine.
it's just wild. I feel like in this game, every character kind of just sort of looks the same.
Yeah. And it's weird because my character had a 9 intelligence.
Yeah,
You should be brilliant, basically, with 9 intelligence. And yet, all through the game, all of my responses to NPCs all sounded stupid to me.
yeah,
Sometimes you would just get 2 or 3 stupid ways to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this a level 4 intelligence? This is what this looks
yeah.
like.
The
But I'm
dialogue
supposed
options
to be
are weird.
9.
Yeah.
Where's my where are my intelligent questions to ask?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
are my See, with 9 intelligence, you should be able to participate in a higher level of dialogue.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they should give you additional quests and things and options. I don't know what it's like to play a 2 intelligence in Fallout 3, but it's probably not that different than it was playing a 9.
I don't know if they did the low intelligence options. I know that the dialogue. I wish I had some specific examples, but some of the dialogue options are very odd. It's like, why would I respond in any of these ways?
So many weird
To some of
things
the
happen
stuff.
in this game. So, like, for instance, I was helping the scientist woman
Yeah.
escape. The Enclave shows up.
Yeah,
and you got to get her out. A bunch of scientists. First of all, what was funny is we walked out the door and immediately she starts getting shot by an Enclave guy. And this is a woman who's just wearing a doctor's
like a
white
smock.
scientist. I keep wanting to say cloak. What's the word I'm looking
Like
for?
a smock.
Smock, is that
Lab
the right
coat?
word? Lab coat.
Yeah.
She's dressed like a scientist. So
Yeah.
she walks out the door. First thing that happens is she takes machine gun fire,
Yeah.
like to the head. She takes a whole clip right in her head, and then she pulls a sledgehammer out from somewhere. She didn't have it before.
Oh,
she just
that's
kind of
interesting.
reaches,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
bam, she's got a sledgehammer. And then she starts whacking this guy who's wearing full power armor. You want to talk about being taken out of a game?
Yeah.
Bizarre. And that happens all the time. Like you said, head crippled. So you'll be fighting a super mutant, for instance. I'll be in his face with an assault rifle. I will dump an entire clip. He stands right there. He's just standing there. And he will grab his face and it says, head crippled.
Yeah.
But then he just kind of wipes the blood out of his eyes and pulls his gun back out and starts shooting you. But what's even worse than that, I got a missile launcher.
Yeah.
And I remember missile launchers for part 1 and part 2. They did some damage. You shoot somebody with a missile launcher in Fallout 1.
Oh, yeah.
They're guts.
Yep.
They're Quake 1 guts.
Yeah.
And the first time I pull it out, I shoot a super mutant with it, point blank, and it doesn't even knock him down. He's still shooting at me. He did damage,
Yeah.
but he's still shooting at me. I was like, this
That's
takes me
wild.
out of the game 100%.
Huh.
Why are you not 20 feet away at least on the
Yeah.
ground? Well, you should be bits. You
Well,
should be
yeah.
paint on the wall, but you're just standing there. You took it. Weird.
Took it like a champ.
The game is full of that kind of jank
Oh, yeah.
stuff that makes no sense.
And just, all those big Bethesda games are pretty buggy anyway.
I
I
went,
remember one time in one of my rampages, I walked outside, and for some reason, Lucas Sims, the sheriff of Megaton, was just on a roof.
Yeah.
And he just started shooting at me from across town. Like, why are you on the roof, man?
So I went to Megaton and they said, we want you to disarm this bomb for us. If you do that, we'd be mighty appreciative. I didn't quite have the science to do it yet, so I'm just doing quests, trying to get some points to raise it up. And I run into this guy and he says, hey, I'll pay you some money if you make that bomb explode. And I basically said, get lost.
Yeah.
Go suck an egg. And he's like, well, hey, I'll be right here if you change your mind.
Yeah, no.
So I went to the sheriff and I said, hey, there's this guy who's, thinking about blowing this town up. You might want to check into it. And I didn't expect this, but the sheriff's like, well, let's go get him. So I'm following behind him. The sheriff, by the way, dressed exactly like a cowboy. So I'm following behind this cowboy like, all right, let's go get him. And we go to the bar or whatever. And he was standing right in front of him. And he's like, I hear you want to blow up the town. And he's like, ha, 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 that's hilarious. I want to do no such thing. Well, it escalates. And the sheriff's like, you're coming with me.
Yeah.
And the guy says, I don't think so. Pulls out a gun, lights him up, kills the sheriff. And then he looks right at me and he says something like, this isn't the last of, you haven't heard the last from me. I'll see you again.
From Mr. Burke.
Implying that he's about to leave, and then, whatever. So I just pull my gun out and blow him away and kill him right there on the spot. That's Fallout 3.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's wild. That's the kind of stuff you get. That's the fun part of Fallout 3.
And the funny thing, too...
That's the kind of wild stuff you get into when you're just wandering around doing random stuff.
It's even, if you want even jankier, because I had some insider knowledge here, I went in the bar, and I've never done this before. I just walked up and just shot him. I just didn't even talk to him. I just walked him and shot him. So basically, you just walked into Moriarty's saloon. Nobody knows you. You haven't talked to anybody. You just
pull a gun out
and shoot somebody in the head and just kill them
for no reason.
And you get karma, and no one does anything.
Yeah. There are times when there will be a full-on firefight going on.
Yeah.
And NPCs will just be standing there like nothing's happening. Shouldn't you be scripted to run away or something? Or at least put your head down?
Yeah.
And, what I was telling you to finish that little thing about the scientist. So, anyway, we take care of the Enclave person, and I'm escorting her. I've got power armor on. I've got all the weapons. These scientists have nothing except the lady who had a sledgehammer for some reason. And I'm protecting them from all this harm and danger. While you're walking down the tunnels, if you engage her in combat, she's like, what do you want? In the same way that she spoke to you the very first time you ever spoke to her. It's like, should she not now be treating me with some sort of common decency now that I'm helping her? So weird.
I don't know what happened there. I didn't have that issue. I think she was always nice to me.
That kind of stuff happened a lot where I felt like the tone of the NPC's reaction to me didn't make any sense.
I don't disagree with that.
The first time you meet the Brotherhood of Steel, they're sort of like, hey, pal, why don't you move along? It's dangerous over here. Yeah. And I kind of get that because I'm just some guy out here, whatever, and you guys have power armor and big guns. But when I did, after I did those quests for the Brotherhood and I had their power armor, then when I met Brotherhood folks in the future, they treated me the same way. It's like, well, aren't you curious? Why some guy is walking around in your power armor? What do you say? Hey, bud, how'd you get that set of armor? It's like, oh, well, who are you?
Interesting.
Are you one of us?
Yeah.
Nope. Hey, civilian. Hey, sport, you need to get out of here before something bad happens. Crazy.
It's like I'm wearing power armor and I have a missile launcher.
I know these games are hard to make. I know that trying to flag all these reactions is got to be a giant job and blah, 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 and whatsoever. But it does take you out of the game when you expect a different emotional reaction and you don't get it.
No, it definitely does.
One thing that I've seen in this game that I've never seen in any other game before, I mentioned Quake earlier.
Yeah.
The original Quake 1. Well, if you remember and if you've played that game, if you did enough damage to an enemy, it would jib them.
Yep.
Which just means that they turned into fleshy chunks and exploded all over the place. Fallout has combat amputation, and I have never seen anything like this in any game before, nor have I seen it since. Which is, for instance, if I have a 44 Magnum scoped pistol, handgun, and I shoot and kill a super mutant, aiming at the head will just pop off the body as though I had taken a surgical laser and cut it right at the throat. Same applies to any other part of the body, the arm, the leg. You shoot him in the leg and kill him, bam, that leg's just going to pop off. It's like, wow, I shot you with a shotgun in the leg, and like a Barbie doll, the leg just pops off for the arm and just goes flying.
It's comic genius.
It's comic genius.
And if you get the bloody mess perk, it's even better.
I should have taken that one.
Because you'll shoot somebody with like a silenced 10mm pistol in the head and their entire body just explodes into chunks that fly at 100 miles an hour.
It is so weird.
It's all over the place.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so if you decide to play Fallout, don't worry about the storyline. Just play the game. Just wander around, do stuff, get into hijinks.
And I will say, one of the things Bethesda does really well, ironically, because they don't do main stories super well, at least in my opinion, is they do all these, I don't know why I'm
You got to quit making that noise.
They do really small stories very well. Like if you walk into some random shack in the middle of the wasteland somewhere, there's always some kind of story that's just in there. I know if you watch the H-Bomber guy video, Fallout 3 is garbage, and here's why. He has a great bit where this is exactly what Bethesda does really well, where he talks about when you go to the Enclave base, and you go to the cafeteria, the floor is grating.
Right.
So if you go underneath the floor, there's just a bunch of knives and forks and stuff like that on the ground. Like, where they presumably drop knives and forks and shit.
Yeah, we should tell some interesting stories from our playthrough. So, who cares about the mechanics, blah, 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 whatever. You just run around and shoot and pick things up, and you've got skills, but they don't matter a whole lot. But
and it is telling that we're not really talking about the main story.
Yeah,
how the Brotherhood of Steel were kind of turned from an interesting faction to just sort of the generic good guys.
Right.
The Enclave, you don't really learn anything about them. They're just the generic bad guys.
And it's interesting because you talk to people, and like the voice acting is pretty good.
Oh yeah, they have good voice actors. They have Liam Neeson and Malcolm McDowell in it. Right.
The voice acting is good, and then you see some of the lines of dialogue, wow, some of this writing is pretty good, but for some reason, after playing the game for hours and hours and hours and playing through it, it's like I just have no emotional resonance with this game at all or anything that happened. Like you find your dad, and for some reason I don't care.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like you find your dad, you don't even really talk to him that much. He's like, "Let's go, kid, follow me," and then you, what? Am I watching Obi-Wan? That's what happened with Obi-Wan. Darth Vader shows up, and I'm expecting a conversation. I apologize to anyone. I should have even brought it up. I know a lot of people like it, but Darth Vader shows up, and you think that Obi-Wan would be like, "Anakin, I had no idea that you were still alive. What's happened?" Instead, he runs away. He doesn't even say a word. Does he even say a word? I don't know.
I haven't watched it. I watched the first episode and wasn't really into it. So
anyway, you meet your dad, and it's like, I don't know. This doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It feels like an AI writing a program. This is how human interaction works.
Yeah, and because the main story has to continue no matter what happens. No matter what you do, how terrible of a person you are, your dad always just kind of like overlooks it.
You can, like you said, and I didn't know this until you told me, but you can blow up Megaton, and your dad just sort of hand waves it.
Yeah.
What happens?
He's like, I'm so disappointed in you, basically, is what he says.
You would disown somebody who did that.
I know.
It'd be over. Quest over.
It's like, I
don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, but still your dad is devastated and gutted, but you're still family and he wants to protect you.
Yeah.
I can see that as well, but be like, things happen.
Pretty much he says something like, you're my son or daughter, and I still love you, but I have no way to tell you how disappointed I am, or something like that.
There's a scene with him. Buddy. All right. At the end, the very end of the, almost the very end of the game, the Enclave shows up.
Yeah.
Project Purity. Your dad is in there with a couple other scientists, and this psycho shows up, and he's like, "You better tell me how Project Purity works, or I'm going to make you suffer for it."
Colonel Autumn, I think his name is,
Yeah. And your dad is trying to play for time, or blah, blah, whatever. He's like, you don't understand. The machine does not work.
Yeah.
Very funny. Now, make the machine work. I'm serious right now. The machine does not yet work. And actually, I'm giving him a lot more emotional power than he exhibits in the show. He's very matter-of-fact and nonchalant about it. And finally, Colonel Autumn's had enough, and he pulls his gun out and blasts this scientist.
Yeah.
What do you think now? And he's like, I wish I could remember the exact words, but basically, it's like he has no emotions. He is the machine.
Yeah.
You were talking about the android earlier?
Yeah.
Your father's an android. His emotional circuit is malfunctioning.
Yeah.
He's trying to fake human emotion, but it's not working properly. He had almost no reaction to what was presumably a colleague and friend, but at least another human being standing 2 feet to his right.
Oh, yeah.
Just gunned down because of him, and he has no response. No one ever brings it up again. It's just weird.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the whole game is like that, where you just have the emotions are not right. And again, I know the jump to 3D and all the things that go with it, and blah, blah, I know it's hard.
Well, it's a lot
not
to
an
do,
excuse, but it took me out of the game 100%. It's like, how can I be immersed when humans don't act like humans? Yeah. I expect human emotion and feeling. Normal human behavior on some level.
That feeling of not being emotionally, not to spoil anything, that feeling of not being emotionally invested in the story, just hang on to that for Fallout 4.
When you play...
Oh, boy! Oh, man.
Are we even going to play Fallout 4?
I'm fine with it. Once again, like Fallout 3, I still like it.
Maybe we will. I've heard the shooting's better, but I'm not really excited about the concept of playing through another soulless...
Look, just wait for it to go on sale.
Yeah, when it's on sale for 99 cents, I'll pick it up and we'll
Yeah.
play through it. So the whole game is like that. I think that might be a Bethesda thing too, where there's something soulless about it. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think you tell me, are the fantasy games better about that than Fallout was? Where you feel like you're dealing with people?
I do think the Elder Scrolls games are a little better
Yeah,
in some of those regards. I think the stories are more interesting
yeah,
a lot of the time,
yeah.
but they're still pretty weird, pretty janky.
So we'll tell you just a few things that happened to us while we were playing the game, just to highlight the how you're supposed to play the game. So I'm walking around Megaton, and you go down to the bomb. I couldn't defuse it because I didn't have the skill. But you do meet these cultists down there who are like, "We worship the bomb, the power of the atom." And there are some interesting personalities in that town. That guy who used to be a raider, and he's not anymore. You can, when you finally make it to Rivet City, and for some reason it was so hard for me to get there.
Yeah.
There's this one guy who's like, "I need you to go get the Declaration of Independence."
Oh,
So
that's
you can
funny.
go on a quest to go get the Declaration of it. I didn't do it, but you could.
I don't think I've
if
ever
you
done that.
wanted
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
I was going to tell you stories about how, but I think I already told you all my cool stories about the game, because I wrapped those up pretty quick after I started following the main storyline. I mean, I was wandering around and I ended up, that lady's making a guidebook, and you're like, "I'll help you out with it."
Yeah.
So first she sends you to a supermarket, and there's a death claw outside. I remember death claws from
was
Fallout
there a
1 and
death
2.
claw?
There was when I was there.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never seen
But
that.
it was almost dead. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. But like Fallout 1 and 2, even when you're geared up, a Deathclaw will end your life
yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
Power armor, everything. You're still toast, possibly to a Deathclaw. And I was just starting the game, so there was no way. So I just snuck around him. It turned out later that he had almost 0 health left, so I ended up killing him just because I could, because he was almost dead anyway. But
Interesting.
So I go into the supermarket, and you're
Super
looking
Duper
around.
Mart.
Super Duper Mart.
Yep.
Looking around. Raiders have taken up residence. So
Yeah.
you're sneaking around. All of a sudden, you'll see a guy, and you have to take him out. And you're looking to see what kind of food is left over, and blah blah blah, and whatever. And you're trying to find. She sent you. It's a weird request. She sent you there to see if there was food. I think she wanted to know if the Raiders were camping there because they had a food source at the store.
Well, yeah,
something like
she's
that.
trying to make a survival guide for
Yeah.
the wasteland, and she's like, "Well, you can might scavenge for some food,
Right.
So go do some research, see if you can find some food in the supermarket."
Right. And so I'm walking around and doing stuff. I'm lock picking some things and using some terminals. And there's like, oh, there's a Protectron, and I had never seen that before. So I messed around with it and started it up. And then this thing starts attacking me. He's like, wow, I shouldn't have started that thing up at all.
Yeah.
So I reloaded and started the Protectron back up, and then just got out of his way.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I'm hiding to let him get some distance, and you can hear him in the distance talking to the Raiders, like, "Stop right there! Choo, 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 choo. You are blah blah. You are a vagrant. Get out of here! Kim, 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 whatever." So that was fun. Let's see, wandering around. You know what's weird is that radiation doesn't feel dangerous in this game at all.
No, it doesn't. You always kind of have a warning, and it doesn't really.
You can take
have
so
ample
much.
time. Yeah.
And I just had tons of like in Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, the medicines that treated radiation, you could get them if you knew how. You know, if you knew, I kill this guy and he's got a ton of it, and I'm fine for the rest of the game or whatever. But in this game, you just find that stuff all over the place. So I had so much Rad-X and so much Rad-Away.
In the first 2 games, you don't actually know that you're getting irradiated unless you have a Geiger counter.
Right.
Which is an important thing.
Right.
It's kind of how radiation would work in real life.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know if you're getting
You wouldn't feel
irradiated.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't smell it.
Until
or
you know
taste it.
you travel and you get stopped and they're like, "Oh, you're sick because you have radiation poisoning."
Right. So radiation weirdly felt like it should be the overarching enemy.
Yeah.
In a land like Fallout.
Yeah.
You should be terrified of getting radiation. But it's just no problem in this game. Everything you eat, if you eat a chip, you get some radiation. If you drink some water, you get some radiation. You just pop some pills and you're fine. Who cares?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that lady we just mentioned gives you a quest where she says, go get 600 rads of radiation and see what you feel like.
Yeah, yeah.
I did not do that.
Oh, you didn't do that?
She tells you to go get a mine as well, and I just ignored it. But I somehow found a mine at some point, and I came back to speak to her again, not even about that, just to visit the store. And she said, "Oh, you found the mine."
Yeah.
And you had the opportunity to lie to her and tell her that you went to the minefield to pick it up. So I did that, and you lose karma. The karma's a little weird. In Fallout 1 and 2, you would lose reputation or karma if you did something that affected your public reputation.
Yeah.
If you stole and no one saw it, it had no effect on you.
Yeah.
Now, in this game, if you steal and no one sees it, you lose karma.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that does to you.
And the karma is just kind of whatever they decided is good or bad, basically. Which is kind of, once again, like I told you about how I went and just shot Mr. Burke in the face in Moriarty's saloon.
Yeah.
And nobody did anything, and I gained karma.
Yeah, that would be
Despite
an
the fact
evil
that-
action the way you did it.
Yeah, despite the fact that in the game I didn't talk to him, I didn't know him. I didn't talk to anybody in the bar, so I just walked in and killed somebody.
Everybody in the bar should have either screamed, run out, or
Yeah.
opened fire on you immediately for
But
that.
the game decided that, that's okay, which I mean it is in that case, but not in the specific situation where I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So
So,
was weird.
anyway,
Lots of weird stuff. One of my favorite little weird things in that game is there's this area in the far north. There's a lot of interesting stuff really far north in the game. But there's this area like with these like big satellite dishes you can see in the distance, big like telecommunication towers.
Okay.
And you can go in there and there's just a bunch of raiders. There's nothing in there really, which is kind of disappointing. I've got a few good stories actually. I'll tell.
Yeah,
them
let's
quick.
hear them.
But one of my favorite little just weird things that Bethesda put in there is there's like a chessboard in there, and all the pieces are just tiny little gnomes, tiny little garden gnomes. I guess they just shrunk down the model,
Right.
Just made it the pieces. I don't know why that cracks me up so much.
That is funny. I do like little stuff like that.
Another lost opportunity in this game. This game has Vault 82, I think it is. It's the sort of like Gary Vault, doing air quotes.
Gary?
Yeah. Basically, they did an experiment in there where they just cloned this guy named Gary over and over again, but they eventually, I guess they just started to degenerate a little bit.
Right.
And they're all hostile, but they only say Gary to you. So you're just walking down this dark corridor and you just hear, "Ha, Gary," and somebody just starts shooting at you. Yeah.
Oh, I wish I would have gone there.
Vault 82.
You know what? You can go through the whole game. You said going up north. You can go through the whole
Yeah.
game and never visit that part of the map.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
think
true.
you just go northwest, a little maybe north, maybe southwest a little bit, but it's mostly southeast. So that
much.
whole section, that whole upper north and northeast section of the
Yeah.
map, I didn't even go up there.
And that has some of the most interesting stuff. You have the Republic of Dave too, which is this
Yeah, I
weird
didn't go there.
weird like cult in the northeast part of the thing where they're having like an election.
Right.
I think you can like rig the election if you want, which I didn't do that. And it has one of my favorite quests in the whole game. If you remember Harold.
Yeah.
What's his name from the first two games?
Harold, the ghoul,
Yeah.
with the tree growing out of his head. Yeah.
He's actually in there in an area named Oasis, which you can. That's actually one of my favorite. I won't spoil it. But that's one of my favorite quests in the game.
Huh. Okay.
Is Oasis. It's
See,
kind of hard to find, but
I missed all the fun
Yeah.
stuff. I did all the boring stuff and missed the fun stuff.
yeah,
What-
like I said, Bethesda. The way to play it is, there's the main quest. I'll do a little bit of it, and then I'll just ignore it and just go do something else for hours and hours.
It was fun enough, but the end of the game was a massive slap in the face to me because one thing you got to get from Fallout, one thing that Fallout 1 and 2 nailed were the endings.
Yeah.
And the reason is every discrete location, every town had a circumstance, and at the end, you find out how your actions affected these towns. So you could do nothing, and then it would just still tell you what happened. Like Metzger from Part 2, he's a slave guy.
Yeah.
If you do nothing, at the end of Fallout 2, there's a slide that says he grows in power and influence and sort of becomes a powerful person in that area. Or you could take the guy out.
Yep.
And in the end slide, it reflects what you did.
Yeah.
It tells you what happened. You get to the end of Fallout 3, and it just says it just babbles about nonsense and really says nothing.
Yeah.
You selflessly or selfishly, depending on your choice,
Yeah.
did this and that and blah, 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 and who cares? And then no slide about Megaton, no slide about the Republic of Dave like you just brought out, or the Brotherhood of Steel, or the Super Mutants, or anything. It doesn't tell you any of that stuff. And I thought, oh my God, they talk about dropping the ball.
I know, it's so unsatisfying.
Todd, for God's sake, you are making a Fallout game.
Yeah.
And you don't have slides for each of the areas that you affected. What happened to Rivet City?
Yeah.
What happened to Galaxy News? What about Three Dog?
Yeah, he's just sort of in the story for a second, then you just forget all about it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like I said, I think Bethesda kind of sort of mislocates what makes it good. They thought, well, Fallout 1 and 2 are great because they're sort of open worlds where you can do anything, but that's not really what makes
Let's
them
get
good.
Todd on the show. Todd, what were you thinking?
Yeah, come on show if you want to.
Oh my God, I would not want to listen to him spin Fallout 3 for 45 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. And there's actually, I should have sent this to you, but there's a video on YouTube. I think it's a documentary, but it's just basically a bunch of clips of the guys who worked on Fallout 3 talking about it.
Huh. Oh, I do want to watch that.
I'll send it to you. And it's sort of telling how little they talk about like the story and stuff like that. They're just talking about like making the game fun and stuff like that.
Right.
Which once again is fine in and of itself, but not so much for Fallout when you have the expectations of 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And to me, there's nothing that sort of illustrates that a little more, or more than the way sort of nuclear weaponry itself is sort of treated in the game. Because
I did have the fat boys.
Yeah,
those little nuclear launcher things.
I'm trying
that
to
you
organize
could
my
use.
thoughts a little bit here.
And what's funny about those, you would think that would level the whole area.
I think so.
But if I missed the mutant by funny story.
Yeah.
So I was trying to hit. There's one guy who was kind of uphill, and this one super mutant. I had no health basically and no way to heal myself for some reason.
Yeah.
So I had the fat boy out, and I was like, well, this will take care of him. I can get by. And I was trying to hit him, but I couldn't get the arc quite right. He was on a platform above me, and he was surrounded by sandbags. And so I would hit the sandbag with the fat boy, and nothing would happen.
Yep.
He would be fine. So the sandbag protected you from this low yield nuclear device? Okay, whatever.
Yeah. No, the fat man, it's like, the first game is literally just about like an entire species that has just been collectively traumatized by nuclear war.
Yeah.
And the different ways that people react to it. You have, the violent raiders. You have people like the Followers Apocalypse who are sort of pacifists. Mm-hmm. The Brotherhood of Steel. And you have like the Super Mutant Master. And, the only people who have like nuclear weapons are going to use it for like destruction, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas, like in Fallout 3, they're like, haha, you can get a mini nuke launcher.
Hey, you open a bathroom
I didn't
drawer
word that well, but I
find
know
one.
what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're saying. You're like, why can I just get a hold of this in the land?
Yeah.
Why are these just around?
It's like, why is this, the
I had
central
like 15
theme.
or 20 fat boys.
Yeah.
In my, how did that happen? And I wasn't buying them. I just found them.
Yeah.
Playing the game.
Yeah.
Why are there super mutants anyway? In the first game, you learned that super mutants are sterile and that the master was in charge of the program to create them.
Yeah.
Well, you blow up the base and you kill the master. Now, I guess his cultists are still out there.
Well,
but
it would have been like 120 years before this game.
Yeah.
On the other side of the country.
There should be no super mutants.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I don't understand why they're super mutants.
Now the super mutants themselves, who are not that intelligent,
Coast,
are supposed to be trying to spread FEV. It's like they can't let go. It's like they think that Fallout is super mutants and radiation and FEV and the Enclave
and the vaults.
And ghouls and the vaults and the vault dweller.
That's another thing too. I think it's sort of interesting to note that most people probably don't know is the only games post Fallout 1 that take place out of a vault, where your characters actually comes from a vault, are the Bethesda games.
Yeah.
2 and New Vegas don't. You're not a vault dweller.
Yeah. It's like, we just got to have all this stuff that all the other right. Yeah. New Vegas, you're a courier or something, and you have amnesia.
Yep.
I haven't played it yet, but I know it starts off something like that. Right. You're not some guy who came out of a vault. And it's like, Bethesda, it's 200 years in your storyline. We're 200 years out.
Yeah.
We should have some sort of development, some sort of. If you're gonna now, you don't have to put the game 200 years from the original. If you want to revisit that apocalyptic scenario, but if you're going to. We should the world should reflect what can happen over the course of 200 years.
Well, hey, you can play Fallout 76, the online
game. You should have
game.
new factions.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, why should the Brotherhood of Steel still exist necessarily? Should everything be such a dump? There should be no super mutants. They should not be super mutants. That far down the line.
Definitely not on the East Coast.
You should have more government at that point, probably regional powers who have taken over.
Yeah.
Maybe even reestablished control of the United States of America at that point. Instead, the Enclave is still some fledgling I don't know.
No, it's very strange.
It's just weird. It's not right. It doesn't make sense. It's like, they just made a gumbo. Todd Howard's in the kitchen, got his apron on.
yeah.
He's like, we're going to make some Fallout 3. Let me take a little of this. Let me take a little of that. All the stuff. He's got boxes of the first 2 games open. He's plucking out all the elements. We got a little bit of this, a little bit of that, stirring it up with his spoon, mix it all together. We got a Fallout 3. Well, guess what? You don't got a Fallout 3. This Fallout 3 is, I don't know what it is, but it's not Fallout.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like Fallout, sort of, in a way. It's got the little guy, the little cartoon guy, and it's got the same kind of sounds, and it's got VATS. But it is not Fallout in the same way that the first 2 games were. It's just not the same thing. Yeah. It's something different.
Yeah.
And whatever, that's fine. Todd made the game he wanted to make, fine. And a lot of people love it, and that's fine too. But are you going to get me recommending the game to you? No. It stinks. But play it because you might like it.
No, they're fun games. Fallout 3 and 4 are good games. They're just not good Fallout games, in my opinion.
We may play Fallout 4, and if Kevin can twist my arm and get me to play another Fallout game. Actually, what am I talking about? New Vegas is next.
Yeah.
We're playing New Vegas.
Vegas is good.
Because I've heard it's great. We're going to play New Vegas. I don't know when we're going to do that, but give us a few weeks to get through the game, and we'll talk about that one too. And we might possibly play Fallout 4. I don't know. Thank you so much for listening to the show today. Tell us what you think. Have you played Fallout 3? Let us know in the comments. I'm assuming you're listening to us on YouTube. If you are, now's the time to like the video if you enjoyed it. Dislike the video if you didn't enjoy it. Hit that. That's fine.
Smash that like button.
Hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel because that helps us a lot and we really appreciate it. Leave a comment and talk to us about Fallout so we can talk to you about it. If you're on Spotify or whatever, you know what to do. Rate the show, follow the show, all that stuff. You know what to do. I don't have to tell you. And if you're on Twitter, @TMC Brewing, we would love to talk to you there. Thanks for listening to the show. This has been Too Much Coffee. I'm Jason. This is Kevin. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And we will see you next week.